Having the CCP think twice before they mess with our critical infrastructure or steal government officials' emails is extremely important, given the fact that they're only going to continue to their cyber operations and capabilities. The Storm 0558 hack, you and I have visited about that, and China burrowing into our critical infrastructure I think is a big wake-up call in many ways, and that more can be done. So I guess I've got a couple questions. The first, how are you thinking about strengthening cybercom's ability to really put fear in the heart of China as you put your team together in Cybercom 2.0? I think that's a very important aspect of this as a sort of a deterrence here. How are you thinking about that?
Senator, as we think about Cyber Command 2.0, you've asked us to study a number of things this summer. The most important of that will be our force generation study. How do we generate ready forces within the Department of Defense? And that study requires us to do a number of things. One, it's how do we evaluate our current structure? This structure now has a service-like authorities underneath what you've now given us in the latest NDA, or the 2022 NDAA and the most recent appropriation, and then evaluating whether we should have a cyber service. We'll come back to you with that. We also are evaluating our overall architecture and our acquisition. Inside that is how can we use our service-like authorities to be more aggressive in the capabilities we have to respond to each of these activities. We have a very solid set of capabilities we use today. We want to be able to move faster, and we want to be able to be more agile in terms of if a new threat emerges, how can we generate the capability, put it in the hands of our cyber mission force to enable our portion of an interagency response?
So, and that's that's a good segue to the follow-up question is, so obviously this is moving quickly, right? The capabilities change, the technology changes. DoD's not known writ large as adapting quickly, right? Whether it's procurement or whatever. What are you doing in that domain that allows you guys to sort of adopt this cutting edge technology quicker?
Senator, first, the department's now given us a number of authorities for our own acquisition. That was a step that allows us to move faster. When I first took over command, I met with each of the program offices that are providing capability to U.S. Cyber Command. I saw each of them as really having an agile opportunity because we deal in software. We are not building large iron, we're building code. And so we have the right program office structure to move faster. We now needed the resources to do it. You've given us the enhanced budget control, and we have to combine it with that acquisition authority.
So I think one of the challenges that we have on this side of the dais is explaining to people in a non-classified setting what the real risk is, what the challenges are, the capabilities that the CCP has, say, for critical infrastructure. This is new kind of warfare for many people. If you were going back to Missouri or Arkansas or Oklahoma and you were talking to folks back home, how would you explain what the capability is, what we need to be vigilant, for, and the best way for us to approach this?
Senator, I think the most recent things that we've exposed across the interagency about how China has established access in critical infrastructure is that wake-up call. In terms of pre-positioning in the critical infrastructure, other areas of the world and in the United States, that really is no other purpose than to pre-position for a crisis. And I think from our perspective, we want to be able to communicate that in as clear of language as possible, and also in highly technical language that industry can leverage and be able to then pursue and root them out of that at every step along the way.
So you and I have talked about this one-on-one too, but I just think it's absolutely critical that China understands our capability, and much like with other sort of platforms that have developed or weapons that have developed over decades, that there's a real deterrence here, that they understand that if they flip that switch, turn something off, that we have the capability and we're willing to do it. We won't hesitate ourselves. And so that's, I think, a dynamic that's really important as we enter this new world. And I guess I'll just close with this. So clearly this is happening here. We've got a lot of newer partnerships established partnerships in the Indo-Pacific. As China sort of shows its fangs, many of those allies are coming our way because they understand the ambition that China has. What are you seeing in the Indo-Pacific with whether it's the Philippines or wherever that would raise the red flag here?
Senator, from our perspective, those partnerships that we're growing in the Indo-Pacific are aligned with Indo-Pacific Command. So as we've talked to Admiral Aquilino and in the future Admiral Paparo, the areas, the nations that they are most concerned with is where our partnerships are. What we have seen is a demand signal from many nations in the Indo-Pacific that are looking for assistance to counter the China cyber threat. We're using our forces to defend forward in some of those nations with our allies and partners to expose to them how China is operating in their networks so that we can root them out of their networks, but also then to be able to expose it to a broader audience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.